Okay, so we have to find the majority element in an array. A majority element is an element that occurs more than n by 2 times in an array of size n. So let's consider an example over here. In this array, the value of n is 12. As there are 12 elements, 2 occurs 7 times. Hence, 2 is the majority element in this case. Okay, so we have to figure out the majority element. Let's consider the algorithm over here. We initialize majority as the first index of the array, that is the value 0, as we start from the 0th index, and count is 0. So majority variable stores the index of an element that might turn out to be the majority element. It's not necessarily the majority element, but it might turn out to be the majority element. Alright. So start scanning the array from the second element using the index I. We've already used the first element, right? Okay, if the value at the ith index, that is the current index that we are scanning, is equal to the majority element, the chances of it being the majority element increase. So we increase the value of count by 1 using this equation. Else we reduce the value of count by 1. If count is equal to 0, we assign majority as the ith index, that is the index that we are currently scanning, and count is 1. Okay, so if count is equal to 0, chances are that the current element which we had taken as the majority element isn't the majority element, so we need to consider the next contender, which turns out to be the current element that we are scanning. So we assign majority as the current index that we are scanning, and count is 1. Alright, so let's consider the same example once again and try to figure out the majority element using this algorithm, right? So the array that we initially considered was 2, 7. Let's start scanning through the array. We'll use two variables, majority and count. We initialize count as 1 and majority as 0 because we're considering the 0th index to be the majority element. Okay, so we move on to the next index. Now the value of 2 is not equal to 6. That is, 2 is the index of the 2 is the value at the index of the majority element. That's not equal to the current element that we are scanning. So we reduce the value of count to 0. Now that the value of count is 0, this case comes into the picture, and we have to assign count to 1 and the index at 6 as the majority element. We do the same over here. So now the value of count again becomes 1, here it becomes 2, because now 2 becomes the index of the possible majority element, as 6 is not equal to 8 again. Alright, so we keep doing this. Okay, so here comes the tricky part. Now that 2 occurs again, so the value at the majority index is equal to the current element that we are scanning. So the chances of 2 being the majority element are extremely high. So we increment the value of count and we keep this index, again, we increment the value of count. Okay, so now occurs 9, an element which is not equal to the value at the majority index. So we reduce the value of count to 2, we reduce the value of count to 1. This case hasn't come into the picture till now. Had it come into the picture, we would reassign it majority index to the current element. So we keep majority element the same. Now 2 occurs again, so we increment the values of count. Okay, so the chances of the majority element occurring at the 5th index, that is this index, are extremely high, but we are not sure as of now. So we need to scan the array and we need to figure out the number of times the element at the 5th index occurs, that is 2 occurs in the entire array, so we can figure out if it's actually a majority element or not. So now we check if the value at the majority index occurs more than n by 2 times. We've already taken out a possible contender for the majority element by figuring out the majority index. If it occurs more than n by 2 times, we say that it is a majority element. The value at the majority index is the majority element. Otherwise, we say that no element occurs more than n by 2 times. That means that there is no majority element. So in our example, the value of 2 occurs 7 times so out of n equal to 12 elements, so this is more than n by 2, hence 2 is the majority element in our example. So I hope that made sense.